Okay, so we're here kicking off the first ever Valley City Area Chamber of Commerce. If we want to call it podcast, interview, whatever you want to look at it as, we have given it a name, and we are here with our first inaugural guest, our honored guest, Mayor Dave Carlsrud, Mayor of Valley City. Sir, are there any things you'd like to say?
Well, you're laying it on pretty thick.
I mean, it is kind of a big deal. I thought you'd be, how would you say, the epitome of what a first inaugural guest should be, right? So,
Well, that's pretty fancy term, but yeah, let's just have some fun and see if we can share some thoughts with people.
that's an ideology I can get behind all day long.
All right.
So, first question I'd like to ask too is, given your position, you're a highly public figure. People know you from all walks of life, and what's something you would say about your job that people don't know? What's something that you deal with on a day-to-day basis that we probably don't have any idea of?
That you can get meetinged to death. There are gobs and gobs of meetings, and it's really a juggling act to get to the essential ones and then have time for the ones that are optional. But lots of meetings, and then with the legislative year, trips to Bismarck and testifying on bills and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can totally see it, but again, we don't think of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've been in Valley City. The first question I'd start with is, where were you born at?
I was born in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and we lived in Rothsay, Minnesota, and then moved to Wolverton and Breckenridge. So I lived in a 15-mile radius for 42 years, and I moved to Valley City in 1988, and I think I'm a lifer now.
Good. That's what I like to hear. The place tends to grow on you after a while, doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't have to live here. My family is mostly east, and we choose to live here because I love Valley City and its people.
Yeah, I haven't been here as long, but I can relate to the sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say, what are some of your favorite memories? It's hard to narrow down one. What are some of your favorite things and memories from Valley City?
My job was with the North Dakota High School Activities Association that is located here in Valley City, and I was there for 22 years, and working with and helping do things, providing opportunities for kids in fine arts and athletics and creating level playing fields for them was a real treat.
That sounds like, it's rewarding work. You can be proud of it at the end of the day. So I'll put you on the spot with a question. I told you I wouldn't, but I'm going to now. Through your time, and there's one gentleman who comes to mind. Do you remember any specific teams, whether it's basketball, football, teams or athletes or players that stand out through the years that were just so good that you can't forget them?
Yeah, but there are too many. There are too many to start naming.
That's fair.
But I will do one. And it was because it was the first time I had experienced it. I went over to Jamestown for a football playoff game, and Darren Ersted was playing. And before the game, he was warming up, and he was punting. And I never heard a sound like his foot hitting the ball before. That was interesting.
Correct me if I'm wrong in this. We should get a fact checker in here. I believe, did he not play Division I football for Nebraska as a punter before he went pro?
Yeah, I believe he was playing baseball, and maybe in spring ball, a football came over into the practice area, and he grabbed it and kicked it back, and I believe that's how he arrived at football.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know he was a great baseball player, all-star. I do believe he made his debut in '97. I just remember it vividly. We started getting new channels, back in that day when we had 12, 13 TV channels, and the Angels got new uniforms that year. And here it was, you're a young kid playing baseball, and you got a North Dakota player, which is just the coolest thing. And well, that's cool. What about? So there's a gentleman I'll ask you for Valley City, and I'm not trying to show bias. This is something I've thought for years. Would have been around that same era, but Jeff Boschee, Valley City.
Yeah.
I had never seen a North Dakota high school basketball player at that time, dominate teams the way he did.
Yeah, he was a gifted athlete, but he worked very hard at his trade, and yeah, he made everybody around him better.
I believe that. Yeah, I still you go to a top 5 team in the nation, Kansas Jayhawks, and you start as a freshman all 4 years. You got to be a little special, you know. You just can't walk in and do that.
Yeah, you have to know the game, and he understood what needed doing to make a team successful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then growing up, if I had to take a guess, I'd say yes, but I'm assuming you played sports too.
Not much.
Really?
I played football, a little basketball. I wrestled, and played some baseball and fast pitch softball. Well, I wasn't really good at any of them, but I learned a lot about each of them, and that led me into officiating sports, and so that's where sports took me, and so I'm grateful for that. It would have been fun to be a better player, but evidently this was God's path for me.
That's totally understandable. Well, nobody wants to perform poorly at what they do, but that's the beauty of it. Yeah, the effort you put in, you get out, and sometimes you can only reach so much potential. But the fact is that you had fun and learned things from it. I think too, 'cause same way I know wrestling. There was a kid I'd have to wrestle regularly. He was from Napoleon, and I got closer sometimes than not. Could never beat the guy. He always had me. And to be fair, he did it year round, where I did it halftime. But you're right. You learn stuff from that. It pushes you to either be better or live with it.
And to maximize one's ability, if I work and train to be the best I can be, and we wrestle, and you still beat me, my job is to tip my hat to you, but know that I gave my best.
Yes.
And there you go.
I agree. That's one thing I have so much respect for wrestlers for. It is such a hard, demanding sport, and sometimes the record really doesn't matter too, because the discipline it requires and the traits that you need to have as a wrestler, or even high school athlete. It's very demanding. You're practicing probably 10+ hours a week, games, and so I do have respect for a lot of those things that build that character. But yeah, and as far as with the Activities Association, what over the years, I would imagine there had to be a lot of changes. Are there any that really stand out that you were part of?
Wasn't ready for that one.
That's fair. That's fair.
In a particular sport, for instance, football, open hand blocking, it used to be that you had to have your hands in contact with your body to block.
Okay.
That changed the game of football. And then the game of basketball was changed with shot clock. We were one of the first states to adopt a shot clock, and it has taken basketball at the high school level to different levels. And the big schools wanted it right away. The small schools weren't so certain. But then when they went to it, they liked it. And then the next one in basketball would have been shot clock. That was a big deal.
I can see it changed the pace of the game and the strategy.
Yeah, it prevented the long stall game. You could still do a slow down game, but you couldn't stand there for 3 minutes with the ball, which was happening. So those are some things that come to mind that have changed a lot.
Sure. And that process when you're making rules that are going to be changing games, changing the way it's done, I take it I don't want to say a political aspect, but there's probably some lobbying that gets involved, because you probably need a lot of support, I take it, or a lot of people on board.
Yeah. One would be wrestling. There was a huge change in wrestling. In 96, 97, I believe it was, there were 3 college wrestlers who died. They were cutting weight, and they were cutting it. They weren't doing it in a healthy manner. They were taking some protein tablets, and they weren't drinking enough water, and they were working hard. So they dehydrated, and you know when you dehydrate, you get muscle cramps. Well, your heart is a muscle, and that's what happened. So there was a weight management plan that came into being, and we worked really hard on that as a rules committee, and we had it ready to go maybe a year and a half before it was implemented, because we had to sell the product before we could put it out there. Because we were changing the culture. That was different than it had ever been done before, and a number of people my age didn't want any part of a change like that. I think it has made wrestling better, and so a wrestler can now grow to a weight instead of cutting to a weight. You can grow downward. In the first year, we had some coaches who were really into it and some weren't. So School A went to wrestle School B. School B just beat them up. First duel of the season. And coach says, well, let's give this a chance, and so team B was growing down to their weights. When it got to tournament, team B defeated team A because they'd been eating, and so they were strong and healthy. They didn't get the early good records, but they then, in years after that, started growing to their weights earlier instead of cutting. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think, and I'm not too on top of it, but with the mixed martial arts now, there's still battling things with weight cutting.
Mm-hmm.
And you get people who maybe walk around at 170 and they fight at 155, and on the way in they're 155, go home and load up on carbs, and then they're fighting probably at 165.
Yep.
And there's the guy who has to come up to that weight. So I think that's always going to be, kind of a issue with things like wrestling and combat sports.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at least you guys have taken good steps to make it healthier. So,
You know how to fix it?
how's that?
Mat side weigh-ins.
Yeah, that would do the trick.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That would do the trick. I don't know enough to speak on it. Like if I'm someone who should have any credibility with it, but that would probably be a pretty controversial change. There'd be a lot of people who'd, be very depleted when they came to perform. So
I'm an old guy, but I'll bet it won't happen in my lifetime.
maybe not. I don't know. That's interesting. So looking back on it, we started discussing like where you're from and
Sure.
family.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking before we started hearing, some kind of stories about your mom. And did you have a lot of brothers and sisters, or?
I have a younger brother and then a younger sister, and so one lives down in South Dakota and one lives over in Minnesota. Yeah.
Okay. I know, so being a sports fan yourself, and I feel like we've discussed this before, so I don't know one of the answers, but Twins fan, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah, they just won, by the way.
I believe that they're on a roll. They're on a heater lately. And then Vikings fan too.
Mm-hmm.
Me as well. So I share your pain. You probably have more of it than I do, just by length.
I saw them lose all of their Super Bowls.
I got to see the '98, which was probably still the toughest one because
they
they
were
records. And
they were so good.
they were. And then the irony, the ultimate Vikings irony is you have the only kicker at that time in the history of the NFL to never miss a kick and then miss like 37, 38-yard kick to go to the Super Bowl. And that should have been it was my introduction to, welcome to fandom here. So how do you think they're going to do this year?
Well, it'll be interesting. They have a lot of tools there, and an unproven quarterback who has promise, but he's never played. So it'll be interesting to see how he does, and if they have enough things around him to protect him from a lot of blitzes and so forth that he hasn't seen before. So they get a little ground game and a short passing game. Hopefully it'll be all right.
We'll see. Yeah, the question's going to be, they always got that good regular season record. I think the better question would have been, so how do you think they're going to break our heart this year? But we're going to be positive about this. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe.
Yeah, I don't want to forecast and then find myself quitting early.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to call it right here now in front of all the people. The Vikings to the Super Bowl. We'll see. So no pressure on them. Watch me eat my words. Someone's going to play this back in about 9 months. But
I'm sure that's a goal. I'm sure they have that for a goal.
You know,
Sure.
I was reading something and I kind of buy into it. I'm not trying to be just a fan, but there are some people who believe outside of quarterback we have one of the most complete teams. Maybe you can bring up secondary, but I guess, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, you got players that don't play as well from year to year and players that come out of nowhere, so that's why they play the games, right?
Mm-hmm. And you think back to that 98 year, you know, they were so good.
Yes.
But a bounce of the ball is all it takes at that level, and when you get into the playoffs, your margin for error is not great.
That's a good point. And they were playing a 14-2 Atlanta team as well. It was also pretty good. So
Yep.
yeah, you know, either way, I don't think we could go on all day about the fights, but I'm glad you shared that. Yeah, and then, you know, I told you about this too, that I was just trying to come up with some, you know, sillier questions, just kind of thought-provoking questions too, and things just to try and get to know a person. So one of them that keeps coming to the top of my mind that I thought is interesting to ask people is, say you leave here today and however it works out, you'd be, you know, gifted $1 billion. Not $1 million, but some extravagant amount of money. What would, walk me through, what would be some of the first things you would do?
With $1 billion?
$1 billion.
Well, we'd have a new school, a hospital, new hospital. We could do our permanent flood protection, and that would put us in really good shape for the city, and then grant some money to update things downtown that need updating, and go from there.
That is a really selfless answer. I will give you credit. A very good answer though. That's awesome.
Well, and the reason to start with the school is their school is over 100 years old. I graduated in 1964. Okay, so the school was 60 years old in that time. And the school is the face of your community. It's one of the faces, but it's an important face, because when businesses look to come here, when families look to move here, they look at education, they look at our wellness center and things like that. And we have a great education system here, but a survey showed that our kids are ashamed of our school building. And okay, so I'm an old guy. My generation, I believe, should have built a school by now. And so I believe we need to look very closely at what it says we can build for $46 million, or if we're going to fix things, it's going to cost $37 million. So to me, it looks like $37 million is an expense, but if you build a new building, you make a $46 million investment. And somebody built that school for us. We need to do the same for future generations, for our kids and grandkids. And so I believe the new school is very important.
Yes, I agree. It's a nice way to also attract families as well, I believe, which is another benefit.
One school has been built somewhat recently, and I don't remember if it was a full school or if it was a major addition, but it was in an area where it wasn't an appealing place to go, and enrollment grew over a short period of years by nearly 30%. If we had 30% more kids coming to school here, it would cure a lot of ills at this point financially.
Yeah, that, and you know, it's like any of us too.
Mm-hmm.
If the problem isn't addressed, not really gonna go away. The school's not gonna get any younger or in better shape, right? The longer.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I hadn't. To be honest, I had never had an opinion on it. I just didn't know. I didn't go to school here, and I remember
Mhm.
one day I found myself in there for work-related reason, and from the outside, like it really doesn't look so bad. And then you kind of think, like, what's everybody talk about? And I did, and I went in and I said, okay, yeah, it could probably use some updating, and to put it nicely. So I get where you're coming from, and there are a lot of impacts too, and especially if we can get local businesses involved in it, it's a good way to distribute the money locally. Let me ask you this question then too, and I don't want to go too far down this road. I say the whole purpose of this is more just to get to know you as a person too. But if you could, maybe it goes back to that $1 billion question. But if you could just snap your fingers and make this place even more of a utopia, I don't know. I mean, would you have any ideas if there were no budget constraints or just wish list things you could do?
Well, the things that I mentioned would all be lending themselves to people wanting to come here to live. Education, and kids like the looks of nice buildings. And healthcare, and we have good folks at our hospital, but the hospital's outdated. So we need to have facilities that will be appealing to people considering moving here or wherever else they might go.
Yes, and kind of one thing you just mentioned, and you're so right, and facilities are different, but one thing that I've noticed, I've been here about 2 years now, and we are so fortunate too to have the architecture we have here. It just adds to the charm, I think, of the city.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that architecture, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right, not only the kids, but it instills a certain sense of pride in the community too. You get a lot of nice buildings, especially ones that aren't run down. Have like the library, the
Yep.
dome renovation, for example. What a difference that is.
Yeah.
And,
There aren't many Carnegie libraries around anymore. And if you Google this one or go over to the library and look it up there, there are some things that are very special about this one and Carnegie libraries in general. But this one is special. I think it's in the top 4 in the nation for something. So they're giving you some homework.
There you go, and I will definitely keep that in mind. One thing too that I think, I just had this conversation. I've been there twice now, and I hope people realize. So maybe, and if you want to expand on this, that would be great. But how lucky we are to have such a high quality museum that we have here. They do such a wonderful job with it.
There's a board that works very hard, and good guidance and hard work is given by Wes Anderson. Wes he's on top of so many things that he needs to be here, along with Josh Johnson. So that you can learn about the libraries, you can learn about the needs of the high school or the school building itself, and that's coming up soon.
Good.
So.
One of these days, I've already talked to him. We're going to try and get him in that spot. And one thing about Wes that I've noticed too, and just meeting him a couple of times, is he's incredibly passionate about what he does, which does make a big difference. Very, very knowledgeable, very intelligent, and especially in that realm. I was able to get the tour from him the first time, and you could be all day in there. And some of the things that we have, very fascinating how we got some of the nation's largest collections and accumulations of some of those exhibits. It's yeah. Did you guys have like a big part in that? I don't know the correlation between that and the city, or if it is more county aimed, or
It's Barnes County Library, so we do contribute, in at budgeting time, but much of what happens there is just due to Wes, and then I know he worked on a World War II event here just recently, and Gwen Crawford from our office did a good deal of work with him on that as well. But yeah, I just can't say enough good things about Wes and what he does at the museum.
yes, it's good. It's good to hear him get some credit. It's good, everybody, especially that deserving. And as far as businesses in town too, that's one thing here with the chambers. I get to get out and talk and meet with a lot of businesses and business owners. In your time, and I guess I should ask this too, how long have you been in your role as mayor?
This will be starting my 10th year next month. Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen a lot of changes, one way or another? A lot of changes and additions in your during your term with business, or
I would say there are challenges for small business owners, uh, for cash flow, because you have to have people coming through your doors to create the cash flow necessary to keep the doors open. And we're on the interstate, and we're easily accessible to other markets. And what what I think would be important is to have people think local business first. If you don't have it, then go get what you can't get here. But if you're going to have businesses here that are going to flourish, we as customers have to make sure that we patronize them. And if we don't, they're going out of business, and then we'll wish we had them back. So think local, shop local first.
yes, and I can personally attest to it. Our business owners here are wonderful people, and people are expecting me to say that, I guess, given the position we're both in. But I can say, through a personal experience, even off the clock before I started in this position, nothing but good experiences here. So that's a very good message to send, and hopefully, hopefully people keep that in mind because, supporting the small business, that is the ticket. And looking back to, is that something in your career? Have you ever thought about? Have you ever done any side hustles, as they call them, to look into any businesses of your own or do anything, or have you mostly just had your career jobs you've dabbled in?
I've had a couple of businesses. Both of them were undercapitalized, and so that's from where my heart comes in this small business thing, because small independently owned businesses provide is it 99% of the jobs in the nation, and yet it's a struggle to get people to come in the doors, and there are many things to offer. There are many things to see when you go to a local small business, but it's hard to go there first when you see all the flashy ads on TV and so forth for the big places. But one has to remember too that you don't drive to shop for nothing either. You go to Fargo and back. If you just go there and come back, it's 130 miles about. Okay, and the government now pays 70 cents a mile. Okay, so now we're up to $93. Costs you to drive your vehicle to Fargo and back. So you're going to have big savings to justify the trip. So you can stay home and spend more, help the small business, and still save money yourself.
Right, and then you can save 2 hours of your day. You don't have to be on the road, add that wear and tear to your vehicle. Probably going to eat while you're out, spend more money. And I agree too. That's something growing up in a smaller town south of Bismarck too. We'd heard from people, my elders at the time, and even some of our teachers discussed it. Kind of the same message. You want your towns to thrive and support the local businesses. And sometimes I wonder if people think of that. And it's a good message to send. I'm glad we asked that. Here's one for you to switch it up a little bit. Silly question again. Thinking back in your life, might be a tough one to come up with, but what would you say the scariest moment of your life was? If you thought you were in danger, any moment that was a bad situation maybe?
Okay, I'll preach a little bit. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
I didn't know that.
Okay, so the things I did while using involved driving often, and it was the wrong thing to do. It was dangerous for me. It was dangerous for my family. It was dangerous for anybody around me. And so that God allowed me to come through that and work my way into recovery was significant in my life, and when I reflect, that was probably the most scary thing ever. That I made it through that.
So not just like one moment or one thing. It was kind of an ongoing. How would you say situation that.
When one is afflicted with an addiction, people around me identified that I had issues. I thought I was normal. Okay,
Right.
and so if I break my leg, I'm the first guy to know it, but somebody else has to fix it. If I have an addiction, oftentimes I'm the last one to know it, but I'm the first one that can start working on it. And so if anybody is listening here who has considerations along those lines, help is out there, and it can help you.
Well, I do appreciate you sharing that, not only with me, but with any viewers we have too, because that's not an easy thing, I imagine, to speak on. But I'm glad that it has worked out and you've found a way through it, and I think that can serve as an inspiration, to a lot of people. So yeah, definitely very good message as well. Wow, I didn't expect that, and I am glad that you're sitting here doing well, and I take it, even though that was probably a negative experience, do you feel like in some ways that you took some lessons out of it, or you learned something from it that is applicable elsewhere down the line? Or?
Recovery has given me a life. If I had continued using, I wouldn't be alive today. So everything I have in life today has been granted by recovery.
Kind of like a second lease, a different perspective on life.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's an awesome story, actually. Really glad you told me that. Well, yeah. To switch the tone up a little bit, then, and if you could sit here today and you could replace me, and have a cup of coffee, go for a walk, just hang out with anyone who has ever existed, been alive at any time in history, who would you say, you would choose to have that conversation or spend that day with if you could pick?
Well, the name that comes to mind today, that doesn't mean it's the same one tomorrow, but John Wooden. You know the name John Wooden?
Yeah, from UCLA basketball coach.
UCLA basketball coach, but he was a person. He was a life coach for people, and I would just love to hear him speak sometime.
Yeah, that's one thing you hear is, you could make the argument maybe best basketball coach, college basketball coach of all time. You could argue easily, but like you said, the person, if you hear any stories, it always ties in.
Yeah. And I wouldn't care much about his coaching. I would like to know him as an individual and how he utilized his people skills to have kids who come and they were the best players on their teams, and how does he bring those players together for the common good.
That's a very good point. You'd have to be quite a salesman, I'd imagine, to get all those guys to buy in, but that's what you're right. That's excellent. So, yeah, going forward with this, you'd mentioned, do you have any plans at some point? I'd imagine you're gonna take some time off, retire, do anything different. Have you put any thought into that at any point, or?
As it sits now, my term will be up in June of 26, and at this point, I don't believe I'll be running again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you a fisherman, golfer, anything on those lines?
I like to golf.
Okay.
I like to golf. Hope to get some more done this year.
Yeah, I hope you can get some in too. I know you guys are really busy. Well, that's cool. How about, I've never, oh no, I take that back. I did actually. You guys came to our event, and very briefly to get to meet your wife. Does she, do you guys have a lot of things you like to do together, hobbies you share?
We both are into exercise. We walk a lot. and over, we used to jog, but time changes all that, and then we've evolved into walking and doing a little resistance training and so forth, and visit friends and relatives, and then hang out and work with the city whenever I can, and go from there.
That's
Well,
awesome.
we're pretty plain folks. We working at high school activities. We had winter and summer national meetings held around the country, and we just never found any place that pulled us such that we would move from Valley City. We like it here, and if you don't have to get up at 5:30 in the morning and move snow before you go to work, it's not all that bad.
That's fair.
And I wasn't expecting that. I thought, man, I want to get out here, go south for the winters and golf.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, and God played tricks on me. I thought I had it all figured out.
Probably put you where you were supposed to be at,
Yeah.
and you've had the opportunity with what you do, and learning more about you even sitting here today, you've been able to be in a position where you can help people in a lot of different ways, so maybe that is a reason. How long have you been married to your wife, if you don't mind me asking?
We were married in 91.
Well,
91, so
Okay.
30, what does that get to be, 4 now?
I was gonna say roughly
33?
break down the months,
Yeah.
but well, what would you say to, I don't know if we even get many of the younger, let's say high school age, but what would you say to some of the younger kids, maybe college age younger couples after being married that long, and what advice would you have for them for partnerships, we could call them?
Getting married isn't an ending. Getting married is a beginning. And you don't just get married and everything works. There will be trials, and there will be trials such that one can't fix everything. Have to come together to fix and make it work. So many things in our society today, televisions for an example. You used to have a television repairman, right? Now you just throw them out and get a new one. And if we go in with that mindset, marriages won't last. If we go in that we're going to work together to make this work, it will. In most cases.
You're right. That's
Yeah.
great advice. I always like to hear the wisdom from people who had the experience to back it up too. So, I guess if you could send a message today, like one message to everyone, anybody who watches, we're gonna put this up on YouTube actually. So
Okay.
who knows?
Mhm.
What message would you like to send? What would you like to say to people, given this platform now?
As far as what?
Just a general message. Like I read, so every week we get your notes from the mayor.
Okay.
Put in, and
Yeah.
you usually have something nice and closing. I do value because it's, to some people it might sound kind of cheesy, like be nice to each other, but that's such a powerful statement. It means a lot.
Respect. I think that one of the things that is not as strong as it used to be is respect among people. And I had an elderly aunt tell me one time that, how is this? I said, oh, it's great, Ruth. I still like her. And she said, that's important because that love isn't all it's cracked up to be. All right? So respect, we can take that definition and carry it around, but to live it is a different thing. And we have to respect people's rights. We don't have to agree, but just because we don't we don't agree, this doesn't mean we can't respect the person. And we just agree to disagree. And I worked with a guy who always said, be tough on the issues, but easy on the people. Keep in mind that this issue over which we are discussing or arguing. It's not about us, it's about that issue. And so keep the respect among, between people, and keep the pressure on the issues.
I like that. I've heard an analogy before. It comes from a different source, but respect really is so important. I think coming down how you treat people again too.
Mm-hmm.
That's something as I've grown older. I turned 40 in September, and sometimes it's fun to compare yourself what you were like 10 years ago, 20 mentally, 25 years ago, and just how it changes over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to think you mature a little bit, but yeah, it's all people really have. I'd heard that from someone who'd been incarcerated. It's why they take things so serious, and it's not a life I'm familiar with, but it's all someone really has respect. And I've tried to think and apply that to anyone you deal with, whether you go out and it's a cashier, basically someone who can't really do anything for you or help you.
Mm-hmm.
Still how you treat them. So I always try to keep that in the back of my mind and be respectful to people. And hearing you say that, and extending it to inflammatory issues, not just daily interactions, that is really good advice. Could kind of keep people civil at the end of the day, and I think that's the best way to resolve things, is to keep it respectful and civil.
And in the realm of officiating, one of the things we used to say was, when voices raise, communication ceases.
Yes, that's good. That's very good. Did you? I don't know. I should. Because we're not trying to out you, but did you ever have a moment when you were officiating where someone went Bobby Knight style, or kind of lost their mind on you, or anything? Any situations you've had to de-escalate as an official that you thought were a little much?
Where you have to eject them?
An injection, yeah.
Yes, but then that person is in an emotional state. It's my responsibility as an official to maintain composure, because if we're going to manage the situation, we must first be in control. And so, even with ejecting a coach or a player, you have to respect what they are, what the player or coach is, and so it was an emotional reaction that went beyond the parameters allowed by the sport. Okay, so we'll keep it on that, and then, okay, coach, you'll have to go just because. Okay, not because I think you're a bad person or I think you're a good person, because you violated this rule of the sport you chose to participate in, which you chose to participate. You need to go now.
Makes sense. And do you feel like, so officiating, I feel like it probably has a lot in common with your current role now, in a way, because I can't imagine it's easy. I did it just a couple of times for like middle school basketball to fill in because there was no one else, and believe me, basketball probably the last sport to have me at too. And you're right, like it can get tense out there, so I can't imagine what it'd be like in front of even larger crowds with probably a lot more on the line. Did you ever feel like any pressure, added pressure, or anything, or were you pretty confident in your abilities and calls, or?
There was an official in the NFL for many years named Jim Tunney, and he was a motivational speaker also. But he said, to control a situation, one must first be in control. So there are times when your heart rate races as an official, but like players, their hearts race, coaches' hearts race, and so forth. We have to be under control to deal with the situation. If I lose control, then my job has gone awry. And now in officiating, players, coaches, and officials, those three-legged stool makes that game stand. If you take one of those legs out, now everything goes to heck in a handbasket.
And you could argue you were probably not the only, but probably the most important part of that lay. Because if you would lose composure, you can see when coaches, how coaches could lose composure, and I'm sure it happens very often, but to be kind of the leader of that game, in charge of that game, it's important, especially for you, I imagine, to keep that composure and stay locked in. It's got to be a lot of pressure, though, I imagine. I mean, things are moving real fast, and you only get one shot to make it right.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, different games mean different things at different times of the year. You know, and if you're near the end of the season and two teams are playing for the first and second spot, or third and fourth, whatever, there's a different pressure, but that's the trick, is to be able to adjust to that pressure so that you can put your emotions on cruise and hold it.
And since you've done that before, do you believe your experience in officiating has not only helped you personally, but like in your current role too, like the lessons you've taken from it?
Yeah, officiating a ball game is much like being a mayor or a councilman or commissioner. I mean, that oftentimes are dealing with emotional people, because whatever the topic is, it's creating an emotional involvement with that person. Now we go back to respect. I got to respect that person has a right to be emotional about this. Okay, so I need to be in a position as we'll say mayor then, that we can work through that without me putting gas on those sparks instead of foam. I need to put foam on the sparks and try to find a way to make it work with that person.
I like that. Yeah, and it's just, I can tell from the interactions I've had with you too that you've got that good temperament for it. I'd imagine that maybe not all officials are as I don't want to say forgiving, but you know, I imagine you've probably worked with or known there's some officials who feed into that sometimes, or start to take it personally, if that's fair to say.
If they can't set the respect, or if they can't keep respect in order and go off on a tangent, they don't last very long.
That makes sense. Maybe I'm thinking like those NBA and some of those MLB umpires and officials. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of it, you know, in North Dakota at the level of high school, but some of those examples sometimes come to mind. We, on a side note from that, I think, you know, I don't need to press you a whole lot on the officiating. It's a very enlightening topic, though. I was very glad that you shared those experiences, and just kind of thinking too now, coming up to June, we've got our community days, and one big thing, the number one thing that's going to kick that off is going to be our car show,
Yep.
Bridge City Cruisers. I don't know if you're a car guy or not, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you have a favorite vehicle, or if you could own basically any vehicle in the world, cost not an option, what do you think you'd pick?
A 56 Ford or a 56 Thunderbird or a 56 how come I can't say the Chevy
56 Chevy.
Corvette?
Oh, the
The
Corvette.
Corvette, yeah.
Is that the split window or was
Either,
that?
I can't remember. I just remember the tail lights on both of them, and I just thought it'd be neat to have one of those. I didn't care which one.
Is there any sentimental value, or is it just something you've wanted for so long?
No.
That,
And it isn't something that I've wanted. Is as much as I've noticed them, and it's always been in my mind, and it wouldn't put me in a place where I would go buy one, I don't think. But I enjoy the heck out of going up and down the street and looking at the cars that come in here, and the Bridge City Cruisers, man, they do a great job. And so while we're talking about it, people come out and look around, because last year we have 200 and some. I mean,
something close to that.
yeah, it's and the folks who have worked on these cars are proud as punch to show you too and answer questions. So get out there, look around, and if it's a hot day, bring an umbrella so you don't burn your nose, and you can be comfortable visiting.
That's right. I've got to. So we're working pretty closely with them on some events. Myron and Terry
Mm-hmm.
and Amber, and you nailed it. You know, they're the nicest people you're gonna meet, and they're so proud of it, very passionate about that. And I haven't got to experience that yet, so I'm looking forward to it. But we're also gonna have some Hot Wheels for like kids. We're gonna have like some Hot Wheels scavenger hunts and like have some Hot Wheels races too. So, you know, for anybody who's a fan of cars that's listening, hopefully they'll come out and your experience too. Again, I very new to this, but what's been your overall experience? I know it has to be positive, but with our community days, what have you learned about it in the years?
You know, that's one of the events that I've always looked forward to attending, the community days. It's just generally there's a good crowd, you know, and you know, with the food trucks and our restaurants around it that are open, and just there's just a lot of stuff to enjoy, and with the reunions and things that they do with the school. Uh, a lot of the old unquote, you know, folks come back and it's fun to visit. It's just a good community gathering.
Yeah, I think so. I know a lot of communities have community days as well, but there's something that I've noticed here, and I can't wait to experience it. But kind of like switching up the seasons and the themes a little bit. I don't think I've ever seen a city or a community go all out like we do for Christmas here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like equating it to that, thinking like, oh, this is gonna be good because now that I'm involved in the planning of it. But kind of switching the themes up a little bit. Do you know how that got started, or has that just always been where?
There have always been Christmas decorations in the time I've been here, but over time, the guys in our electrical department have become more and more intrigued, and then they notice things in other communities, and for one thing, they took our many of our old decorations, pulled the old lights out, and put LED lights in it. Looked like we have brand new stuff. And then we've been budgeting to add a little bit each year, and our electrical department gets out there and they put stuff up, and you know, Veterans Park, that's their baby. They get that done. They're out there with their iPads and they're checking. And next year we should do this, you know. So it's a labor of love on their part, and a passion that not many folks have. So we're really fortunate to have those folks working with us.
I agree, and I don't know who they are. Maybe I do and don't even know it, but I just want to make sure they get some credit for that because it's amazing. I've got two nieces and a nephew and another on the way. I don't know the gender yet, but I have been telling them for the last 2 years that you guys have to come here and see this, and they're going to come over this year when we do that. When we kick everything off, and I think it's something we need to promote too with this.
Mm-hmm. And if I can circle back just a little bit, you know, we talked about the electrical department and the lights, but there are numerous things that go on, and it includes our whole team of employees for the city. Okay, and we're fortunate in Valley City to have a team, an employee staff that is so good at what they do, and they're proud of what they do, and I'm proud to be affiliated with them. It's a wonderful thing we have going here in Valley City.
It is makes me proud to live here too, and like you said, it's a lot of effort. It's especially when it's cold out, putting those things up, taking them down. Sometimes it's probably not fun, but I feel like we've touched on a lot of different topics, and it's been a very good conversation. And I'm very appreciative you've taken this time out of your day to be here with us. Before we wrap anything up, is there anything you'd like to say or touch on or leave us with?
I think we've touched on about everything that comes to mind now, except when I walk back to the car, something will come to mind. But just thank you for thinking of me and including me and sharing your afternoon. So anytime we can be of help, feel free to call.
Okay, well, I can verify that you guys have been helped many times, so that's not just words, and I appreciate that, but thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right.